Sovereignty Act will legalize pipeline and other major projects by repealing the anti-development law C-69. It will legalize shipping Canadian energy off the northwest coast of BC by repealing C-48. It will axe the industrial carbon tax, something the Europeans are doing, and given that our competitors in America have no industrial carbon tax, it is untenable to force our people and our industries to pay this tax. We will get rid of the oil and gas cap that kills jobs. We will get rid of the ban on plastics, the petrochemical industry that produces our plastics. The plastics themselves are essential, and so are the jobs that go along with it. This, by the way, this plastics ban is not about, it's just saving your straw. It's about saving you about $400 or $500 a year in food that would otherwise go bad because it would not have plastic to preserve it. And we have a wonderful Alberta-based petrochemical sector that contributes to plastics that we need to protect. We'll get rid of liberal censorship laws that prevent our energy companies from talking about their incredible achievements and their environmental stewardship. We will legalize into the future your right to drive a gas or diesel-powered truck or car by repealing the liberal EV mandate. All of this will be in one bill. Next, we're going to reward those who build. We'll get rid of the capital gains tax when you reinvest your proceeds here in Canada. This will cause a boom in Canadian investment. Here in Canada, we get about half the investment per worker as they do in the United States of America. We get about 14, 15 grand of investment per worker in Canada. In the States, it's 28 grand, both measured in US dollars. No wonder that the American economy is leaving us behind. We need to reward investment by letting people who sell one asset and reinvest the money in Canada do so without capital gains tax. We will give free trade bonuses to the provinces, paying them the economic benefit that results from them opening their markets to fellow Canadians. We'll protect innovation by requiring in this law that the minister do a review and present a plan to stop the mass sell-off of Canadian inventions, discoveries, and innovations. We pay for all these incredible technological breakthroughs in Canada, often with tax dollars that subsidize it at university research and elsewhere, and then it's sold off to the Americans. And we become dependent on them for the technology that we ourselves invented. Finally, outside of the bill, we are making a call to action. Today, Conservatives are calling on Prime Minister Carney to have pipeline construction underway for at least 2 projects and to have at least 1 new natural gas liquefaction project and a road to the Ring of Fire in Ontario under construction by the first anniversary of him taking office. The Prime Minister can and must do this, and he can do it by consulting First Nations as required under Section 35 of the Constitution.
Okay, I'm going to go to Keith first here. It sounds to me like the Canadian Sovereignty Act is just the Conservative Party platform put into law, and it was rejected by the people who decided the election outcome in Ontario once already. But then he ends with, we need to have pipeline projects underway. Here's the problem. No company wants to build them. There are no proposed pipeline projects, west-east pipeline projects right now, because the Liberals are in power, and these pipeline companies are not going to invest millions and billions of dollars into something that will die on the vine, like Energy East, like Northern Gateway, and in no small part, just the saga of Keystone XL.
Well, I think they want to build them, but they don't want to go on a fool's errand.
Right.
And they know that, and I know that you meant, Sheila, I'm not trying to be unfair.
No.
Is that, I feel sorry for Pierre Poilievre.
Me too.
Because the reality is Canada's done. And the reason I say that, and I'm so resolved to it, is it's not just structural, the imbalance in how electoral power functions. It's cultural. It's the ethos of the people. And if he says things to be responsive to conservatives, by small c conservatives, so somebody who is politically conservative as opposed to a political party in Alberta and Saskatchewan or Western Canada, he's going to lose votes in Ontario, Quebec, New Brunswick, PEI, Nova Scotia. And if he says things to be responsive to their perspectives and needs and ethos of the world around them, he's going to lose votes on the prairies. And it's because we're fundamentally different people. And it's become increasingly clear that we see the world through a different lens, that Albertans and people from Saskatchewan want less government in their lives. They want government to get out of their way. They're okay not being totally safe. They want a little risk, actually. So to live a good life, you got to have some risk. And they don't frankly think government's capable of keeping them safe anyway. And, you know, then you don't go for a walk in the woods in Nova Scotia, New Brunswick, because you might break your leg or start a fire. So I really feel sorry for him. I think it's a reflection that Canada's doomed, that it's become increasingly clear that we have different goals and we have different prospects. You know, one of the scariest tables I have come across, it's a table that it's about equalization. And it doesn't show it shows the raw numbers, but it shows the percentage of the revenue to the province that comes from equalization payments. And Nova Scotia, New Brunswick, and a few others, it's 20% or more.
Ugh.
So 20% of their provincial revenue to deliver education, healthcare, infrastructure, social programs, etc., to run their jails and their court system come from Alberta and Saskatchewan, but primarily Alberta. So it's a dysfunction. What Pierre's announced, and just on the C5 stuff, you know, so the reason Carney said we're going to designate national projects, we're going to shovel ready, we're going to build, we're going to all these slogans together is a sentence. Here's the problem. Well, why did he have to bring in Bill C5? It's because he has acknowledged that the Bill C69, which is the Environmental Assessment Act, the tanker ban, the EV mandate, the net zero mandate, the emissions cap, all of these things combined are creating a disincentive to investment. Investment dollars have choices. They're going to other countries, creating wealth and jobs in those other countries instead of Canada. So he says, okay, I'm going to create a bypass. And the cabinet's going to approve certain projects. And then he says, well, yeah, but only those projects that every premier consents to. So now a pipeline to Tidewater on the West Coast can be vetoed by the premier of Nova Scotia? What the heck? That's not even the current condition of the dysfunctional system. And then he added last week that First Nations effectively get a veto. So now the bypass is actually more problematic and more clogged and more uncertain than the problematic legislative policy framework that it was designed to overcome. Canada's in a bad spot.
Yeah. Remember the National Energy Board, the NEB? And
Yeah.
how it was just non-political. It only cared about technical stuff. Wow, what a time to be alive. Michael, I saw you nodding along with Keith when he said that the West is culturally different. I would dare say culturally incompatible with the rest of the country. And so when I hear Pierre Poilievre saying these things, I think, yeah, it hits my ear nicely. But people in Toronto, they may be clutching their chests in disagreement.
You know, it's amazing that there are different types of conservatives in this country. You have the conservatives, Western conservatives, which we're all familiar with, but then you have Eastern conservatives that'll ban you for $25,000 for walking in the woods.
Right.
That's a conservative premier, right?
Right.
We are more kindred. Well, I think we have to face this.
Yes.
The thing is, quite frankly, you know, I may be called anti-Canada because of saying this, but the reality is our kindred spirits are not east to west, they're north-south.
Mm-hmm.
BC basically is California. We have more in common with people in Texas, Idaho, North and South Dakota, Wisconsin. The East, they have more in common with people in New York and Maine and that sort of thing, in New Hampshire, right? We're north-south, not east-west. And the thing is, the reason why we'll lose is because there's just more of them there. There's more people in the East, and we will continue to lose. Pierre is speaking to basically people that understand it, but you're absolutely right. That was the platform of the Conservatives, and we lost in that. So, you know, as much as I'd like this, I don't know why I want Canada to sort of remain an independent country, other than basically this is what I've grown up with for the last 60 years. But the reality is, I have relatives who live in the U.S. They're enjoying their time down there way, way better than we're enjoying our time here in Canada. They're really enjoying their time there. And you ask them, is there any regrets? And the only response I get from is, yes, I wish I would have done it sooner.
Huh.
And because Canada is an exceptionally hard and complex place to live, aside from the natural, the cold and the harshness of the climate. It's just hard to live here. Taxation, multiculturalism, which nobody sees eye to eye on anything, immigration, the depth of social structures in this country. It's just harder to live here than it is in the U.S. Now, that's not in all cases, because I think there's some places in the U.S. are hard to live with, particularly in poor areas and crime and that sort of thing. So it's not all roses. But if you are a person that wants to make something of themselves, wants to work, make money, live in a nice area, I think they've got a pretty much better life than we do down here, or up here rather.
Yeah. Lise, word goes to you before we wrap up the panel.
Yeah, just going back to Pierre Poilievre's piece there. Yeah, that was nothing new under the sun. Anybody that saw him in the federal election campaign heard all of those things before. But what I thought when I was watching him is that Pierre Poilievre right now is experiencing Alberta immersion. Okay,
Yeah.
Alberta immersion. Because for years and years and years, Pierre Poilievre had his safe seat in Carleton. Okay, he was Ontario-centric, Ottawa-centric. He was surrounded by kind of woke Eastern conservatives that were in his sphere of influence and actively influencing him. And now that he's got a little bit of distance between himself and the woke Eastern conservatives, he's going to be hearing a lot of very Alberta opinions. And we can only hope that influence wears off on him real fast.
Yeah, yeah, he's going to be hearing from a lot of people who will vote for him in the by-election, but also want to leave Canada. And it's the Venn diagram there, I think, is largely a circle when it comes to Alberta.